The gentleman from Indiana, Mr. Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's been a lot of focus today on how this proposal will destroy jobs, and rightfully so. You've already heard a lot about the NFIB study, but another recent study using the methodology of the Congressional Budget Office found that this proposal would cost my home state, the state of Indiana, 64,130 jobs in 2020 alone. This isn't just a number. That is nearly 65,000 Hoosiers losing the dignity that comes from having a job and being able to provide for themselves and their families. At a time when we have nearly 7 million jobs that cannot be filled, it is incredibly reckless to rob people of their livelihoods in order to live up to a campaign talking point. I've heard from local business owners in my district who believe this legislation would have a disastrous effect on their ability to grow and hire Hoosiers. One business owner who runs a number of local franchises conveyed to me that approximately 25% of his staff would need to be cut to account for this proposal. He would also be forced to raise prices in his restaurants by 2 to 4% just to stay in business. Another constituent of mine who owns a number of restaurants as well and employs nearly 250 people told me that the tipped wage provisions of this bill would force him to cut half of his staff just to stay afloat, along with across-the-board menu prices as well. Think about that. Anywhere from 1 in 4 to 1 in 2 workers unemployed who are then forced to pay higher prices after losing their jobs. And as if that wasn't bad enough, there is evidence that this will actually reduce income for low-wage workers. By making labor more expensive, fewer workers will be hired, and the ones that do keep their jobs will work fewer hours, which translates into lost income. And that, in fact, that's exactly what we saw in Seattle. City of Seattle recently, as you know, increased the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And a study from the University of Washington found that this reduced the number of hours worked in low-wage jobs by nearly 7% and lowered take-home pay for low-wage workers by $74 a month. That's right, the minimum wage increase actually resulted in lower overall wages. Now, I take personal offense to this conversation as well, because in high school and college, my folks didn't have enough money to pay for my college degree. So I worked low-wage, minimum wage jobs to be able to save up for college and make ends meet. So this conversation reminds me of just how important jobs like these are to those Americans who are hopeful to one day pursue the same American dream that I've been able to live in my life. So Dr. Holtz-Eakin, can you expand on the insights of these studies from the University of Washington, the NFIB study, the Congressional Budget Office statistics, specifically how minimum wage laws actually can reduce the income of low-wage workers?
I'm happy to, Congressman. First, in the interest of clarity, none of these studies indicate that overall employment in the economy is in decline. The economy will continue to grow. There will be fewer jobs created than otherwise would have been. That's the nature of the loss. Those jobs are going to be concentrated in a particular part of the labor market, which is the low-wage, low-skill, little experience part of the labor market that you started out in. And the adjustments that businesses of all sizes will be forced to make will be either to charge higher prices or cut their labor bills somehow. And that means cutting back on raises, cutting back on hiring, cutting back on hours of work. And if you are one of those people who is lucky enough to maintain their job but is not getting a raise and getting their hours cut, you could end up with less income.
Another study suggests that 2.3% of the American workers actually receive minimum wage or work in minimum wage jobs. And of those 2.3%, most of them are under the age of 25, which reflects upon the story that I've lived as well. They work those jobs to pursue something better, the proverbial American dream. I'm struck at the outset of this hearing. Dr. Zipperer admitted he conceded over and over again, although not on the, we can debate the scale, but he conceded over and over again the negative impact that proposals like this would have on low-wage workers all over the United States of America. This conversation is concerning to me. It's concerning to not just business owners in my district, but those who work in jobs like these. It would have a disastrous effect, and with that, I yield back.